You know, guys, I really believe that the Benghazi thing has hope for us that are conservatives. Governor Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas, now who is on Fox News as a commentator and has his own show on Saturday nights, predicted, and I think actually made a prophecy a few days ago, that Benghazi was going to have legs and that it was going to do two things. It possibly, he said, could cause President Obama not to be able to finish out his second term.
Boy.
Isn't that amazing? But secondly, he said it will probably hinder and maybe even stop Hillary from being the next president, because you see, now that she's in campaign mode, that's exactly what she's doing. She's running for president.
Right.
And not so much, you know, the details of what took place in Benghazi. I mean, it's a tragedy. You know, when Hillary Clinton got on there and screamed and ranted and raved and says, "What difference does it make?" You know, my heart went out to those American families whose sons died there. That's what difference it makes.
4 families were brokenhearted as she spoke those words.
But it appears now that even the liberals are going to have to deal with this. I've noticed ABC is getting into it now, and CBS, and of course, you know, the reason that they've left it alone is because of this media connections with liberals in the White House.
Right, exactly. And they've covered up the lies, and they've not reported the lies, and now the lies have started to pile up, and people are now, you know, coming out. Things are coming out of the woodwork, and emails are being revealed, and letters that were written, and talking points that were changed. And I think they said no less than a dozen changes in the talking points before Rice went on the TV and started blaming this you know, incorrect thing for causing Benghazi.
Well, let me say, I believe that this particular incident reveals what we've known all along, and that is that this regime is built on deception and lies and trying to deceive the American people, and after a while it's going to catch up with them, and I believe it has caught up with them. And I'm not rejoicing over this fact, by the way. I'm sad that we have that kind of leadership in the White House at this time.
I think it proves a point that's even a larger point, and I hope people would call in tonight and give their opinion of this. I said on this very program during the first term when Obama was elected President of the United States, I said this, and I really got terrible email from the left, and people really, even some conservatives pulled me aside and said, I think you're wrong on this. I made the statement when Obama got elected. I said I do not feel safe in my country any longer. And I felt like that the protection, not only the spiritual protection that God has had over this nation, and I know some of the liberals out there listening to us laugh and they smirk when we talk about God protecting our country. But I'm telling you, you'd have to be a fool not to believe that God has had His hand and given His favor and His prosperity to the United States of America. But I really feel like something shifted when President Obama was elected the first time. And for the very first time, since I grew up in Arkansas, I grew up in America, America's been my home, I love being in America, I had always felt safe. Even under Bill Clinton, he wasn't my favorite president, even though he came from Arkansas. I felt that he would do, I felt like he would do, though, Joe, what it would take to keep us safe. But I have to be honest and tell you guys, I really felt 5 years ago that we were no longer safe in our country, and I think you're going to see the terrorism is going to be on the increase. I think that Obama, when he went on his apology tour and he went all over the world apologizing for America's strength and apologizing for the things that we've done that's made America the most successful nation in all the nations put together.
That was one of the most shameful things I've ever seen an American president do.
Well, I think, and when Hillary Clinton gets on there and says, what difference does it make if it was just somebody out walking and decided to kill some Americans, or versus terrorism? I mean, can you imagine someone in her position making a statement? What difference does it make? Why? The difference is it was terrorism. It was a plot. It was an attempt to destroy the embassy, which they did. And you know, I don't know anything about Ambassador Rice. I know she must be a liberal, or they wouldn't be promoting her like she is. But you talk about a slaughter, you know, a slaughter she was a slaughter of the lamb. Let me tell you, they slaughtered her. They sent her out there. They gave her these talking points you mentioned, Pat, that had been changed, and Joe, you mentioned that had been changed over and over again. And you know, it's interesting. We're sure not hearing anything you ever heard these days, are we?
No, we aren't. And Gregory Hicks came forward as a whistleblower, as well as Mark Thompson. These are men that have no political axes to grind. They've served under both administrations, Republican and Democrat. And yet they are ashamed of what has happened, you know, and have said they were totally embarrassed by the comments that were made, and you know, when he said, when he was asked the question, what did you think when Rice came out and made her talking points that Sunday? He said, my mouth fell open,
Right.
and he said, you
I
know,
was shocked.
I was shocked and embarrassed.
Well, I think one of the mothers of one of the slain put it very succinctly when she said they just don't care about us at all. They just don't care. She kept repeating that over and over, and I'm convinced they don't care about us Americans. They care about their political power.
Well, and you may be listening to us and you say, well, what are the pastors of America insinuating here? Well, let me tell you, we're not just insinuating. What we're saying is because of their liberal politics, Americans died, and more Americans are going to die because of liberal politics in America.
I think that's going to happen, and I think that we're seeing, you know, it is no wonder that we have no respect for the United States any longer, nor any fear when we say anything. I mean, they just don't believe around this whole world that we're ever going to really take a stand against terrorism and say enough is enough and try to put a stop to it for good.
Well, when you have a weak president, you eventually have a weak military and you have a weak nation.
Well, when you said it might end his term, you were talking about impeachment. There has been some talk about that because straight out, you know, right forth laws and lies have been uncovered.
Absolutely.
And when you have that, there is room for impeachment.
Well, some say it's not another Watergate. I'm not sure. It may have the
worse.
same results, or
I
even be
believe
worse.
it's worse than Watergate.
We're going to be right back. You're listening to Answering the Call. I used to see that sign that was on many bumpers. That was a bumper sticker, Pat, that said nobody died at Watergate. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
And when they had that bumper sticker, they were talking about Chappaquiddick when the
Right.
Kennedys
Right.
had that
That is
woman that was
absolutely-
killed, and that was covered up. But then they would say, well, you know, that they got out of that, they wiggled out of that, but Watergate was another thing. So it would say nobody died at Watergate. You know, when I think of that bumper sticker now, you know, nobody did die at Watergate,
That's right.
but now we have people that died in Benghazi, 4 different American heroes, and yet people are arguing, saying, well, this is no Watergate, there'll be no impeachment about this. Well, I'd like for those listening out there to give us a call and tell us what was so bad about Watergate that isn't trumped many times over by this mess at Benghazi. And our numbers are 316-721-8255 if you're here in the Wichita area, 721-8255, or anywhere in the 316 area code. That's 721-8255, or out across this whole network, or really anywhere in the country. We have a toll-free number, 877-720-1480. That's 877-720-1480. I'd like to hear some discussion about the comparisons of Benghazi and Watergate.
Let me say, a lot of people may not remember what Watergate was about, but it was some of President Nixon's henchmen that broke into the Democratic headquarters,
Watergate Hotel.
at the Watergate Hotel, and they were trying to steal some information from the Democratic campaign. That's all it was. And what got Nixon was he tried to cover it up. Then nobody was hurt. They just broke in. They got caught. They began to confess, and
he lied.
And Nixon lied, and because he lied, he finally resigned because he knew they were going to go through impeachment, and he said that he didn't want to take America through that process.
Well, we've come a long way since then, haven't we?
Oh, we sure have.
A president who would think about lying about a break-in, and now we've got 4 men killed, and we've had nothing but lies out of the White House and out of many other areas concerning this event.
And there was amateurs in both processes. The amateurs broke in the Democratic headquarters, and I believe we had a bunch of amateurs trying to defend Benghazi at one time, or take care
Or
of the
trying
public,
not to defend
or
it.
trying not to defend it. And it's a sad thing that we do have an amateur. We did have amateurs and are amateurs in the White House.
Well, and it's the people that are talking now that's going to give Obama serious trouble.
Absolutely.
Because these are not partisan talking heads. These
No.
are not news, analysis people that from Fox News.
And they're not people who
anyone
just
else.
serve for Democrats and just serve for Republicans.
Even the Democrats have to admit these are not politically minded people. And,
Exactly.
And they're speaking the truth, and their heart's breaking. The number 2 man in Benghazi is the one who's saying we were left alone. This should have never happened.
And the sad thing is they were trying to do what they were dedicated to do, and that is save lives, and they had their hands tied behind their back, and could not respond because I believe and I'm convinced the orders came from the White House. And where in the world was President Obama when all this was taking place? Nobody knows.
I can tell you where he was. He was trying to get reelected to a second term, and he was. They said he took a nap.
And he'd
got
already
up on
talked
Air Force
about
One
that
and
terrorism
went
has
campaigning.
been defeated. We haven't had any problems with that, and you know he won't even use the name terrorism.
No,
and,
he will not.
And there was all kinds of talk about the fact that this was something that was being carried out by terrorists, that was
Right.
known, but rather than put American planes into airspace that doesn't belong to America, we might offend the Iranians, or we
Well-
might offend this person or that person if we do this, or even if we send a drone in there. I mean, we're apologizing for all these kinds of things when 4 servicemen are killed.
And here he's spending thousands of dollars to fly his airplane around all over America trying to raise money. Millions of dollars, and yet he wouldn't take time to spend money to send protection over to our guys in Benghazi. I think it's a shame, and he needs to be removed.
More than a shame, it's a tragedy, and I think the real motives behind it. See, that's what I think the Democratic Party is sweating right now, is what were the real motives behind it. See, you know, if they could, hindsight's 20/20. If they could go back, you can bet they would go over and rescue those people.
Certainly.
But they never dreamed this would draw this kind of attention.